the best herbal remedies for seasonal allergies, and her questions with children. What factors can contribute to histamine intolerance? Histamine can lead to allergy-like symptoms. And the next person, Haley, says, I suspect I have a gut issue along with hormonal imbalance. What is the best way to get started figuring out the root cause of both? So let's take those a couple at a time. So histamine, let's talk about histamine first. So histamine is released from something called mast cells. They float around, and when they're activated, the mast cells burst. They release histamine, and then histamine does what histamine does. And we know it as, like I have today, swollen sinuses, allergies, leaky mucous membranes. We see vasoconstriction in some areas, vasodilation in other areas. That's why your nose gets puffy, that vasodilation. And so we see a lot of ill effects of that, like hives is a acute histamine response. Allergic reactions, a lot of that's histamine, not necessarily histamine related, like a peanut allergy, but like a seasonal allergies is histamine mediated. So then we take a Zyrtec or Claritin or something like that to block the histamine, at least a little bit. We block the histamine receptors so that the histamine doesn't have those effects. But as far as addressing that, so how do we naturally address histamine? And one is to, and I wish I could share my screen. I don't think I can. So one thing is to look at the histamine pathway and how do we form histamine and what stimulates the release or the formation of histamine. And I'll just read it off the list here. So we have stress, we have toxins, we have inflammation, we have bacterial byproducts, infections, bacteria, histamine-containing foods. So you can actually go on a low histamine diet if you think histamine is a problem. We have some other toxins that are there, and allergens like pet dander and seasonal allergy type stuff, pollen and things of that nature. So those are all things that stimulate the release or formation of histamine. So that's on the incoming side. So that's, say we have a bucket full of histamine. When it overflows, we get the reaction. So the bucket's close to overflowing, and things that make it overflow more that add to the bucket are all the things I just mentioned: stress, inflammation, bacterial byproducts, histamine-containing foods, toxins, and so forth. So that's one side. So we're filling it up too quickly, it'll overflow, we'll get histamine response and symptoms. On the other end, we need to drain the bucket slowly. And we're always processing histamine that's released and removing it so that there's a balance there, because we want some histamine there. It's there for a reason. It's there to protect us from some of these things, because these reactions are beneficial when done at the proper amounts. But when it's hyperactive, when it's always there, when it's not supposed to, that's when it's a problem. So we need to drain the bucket as well. So things that help drain the bucket, there's a lot of nutrients involved. There's copper, there's calcium, water and oxygen is needed. There's B2, there's B3, B1, vitamin C, zinc. So all of those things help our body remove the histamine. Then the third way is, so the histamine's in the mast cells. So mast cells are bursting too easily. That could cause a problem. So kind of a third angle we can look at is what they're stored in the mast cells. We can try to make them less prone to bursting. And we see things like quercetin. That's Quercetin, quercetin, however you say that. So that can help stabilize those mast cells so it doesn't burst and create a histamine response. Vitamin C, bioflavonoids, rutin, things found in like citrus and those types of foods, and the vitamin C related type nutrients can help stabilize those mast cells as well. So that's the answer as far as what triggers it, what kind of remedies are available. And so, yeah, let me know if that makes sense. And I can post some more information about that if people are interested. And I might post some natural remedies and supplements that are good for allergies, because it is allergy season. There's a nasty allergy or sinus stuff going around now. And when you get that histamine response, it's good to be able to lower that histamine. And I know, like, when I get it bad, I try to avoid the antihistamines because they dry me out and they make me feel loopy. But sometimes it gets so bad you can't avoid it. But I know I feel horrible on this thing, so I try to avoid them if at all possible. All right. And then Amanda, so part of her question was, how is it cured? And the answer to that is, it's not always easy, but it's investigating some of those root causes that we mentioned. So if you have an infection, underlying infection that's chronic, that your body's not fighting to get rid of, you can try to get rid of that. Certain supplements can help your body's immune system and help weaken those either bacteria or virus to help your body get rid of them and restore balance. If it's nutritional factors, so if there's nutrient deficiencies like the zinc, copper, and some of the other things that I mentioned, you want to address those deficiencies. That can help. So you just want to try to address any of those root causes that we can, and try to handle it that way. For some people, they just lack the enzyme that breaks down histamine, or because of their genetic variations, they don't break down histamine very quickly. And in those cases, you could take supplement to help boost that enzyme. It's called DAO, diamine oxidase. So that could be an option as well. But you always want to try to get to the root cause first, because just like with medications, you can get hung up on treating symptoms with supplements. And that's maybe slightly better than medications, because usually the supplements have less side effects. But at the end of the day, you still want to always try to get to the root cause. So if that's a nasty overgrowth of bacteria in your gut and that's triggering histamine release, then you want to get rid of that instead of just taking something like quercetin or DAO to try to solve that.